This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth. Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to have you with us because today we have a very important show for you. Today I have joining me on the line Tim Warman of Fiore Gold, FioreGold.com. And if you're not familiar with his work, let me quickly just give you a quick breakdown. Tim is the CEO, of course, of Fiore Gold. He's a professional geologist with over 25 years of experience in all phases of mineral exploration. From grassroots exploration to feasibility and development, he's held board or senior leadership roles with some of the most successful exploration and development companies of the past decade, which have together discovered over 30 million ounces of gold. So Tim, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with us here today at Press for Truth. Now, I obviously want to get your views on gold, what you've seen happening with it in the last even 30 days or so. We seem to have seen a pretty big spike in gold, so I want to get your views on that. But before we get into that, maybe you can break it down for us why you think it is that people seem to be moving their assets into things like gold, and not only gold, Bitcoin, various cryptocurrencies, and gold. It seems that maybe people are aware of the looming dollar crash in the United States, or the talks of war going on with North Korea. We've got so many things happening geopolitically in the Middle East. It seems that people are wising up to the fact that they need to protect their assets. So what do you think is going on here? Why are people moving their assets into things like gold and Bitcoin these days?
Yeah, I think, gold has always been a store of value and a bit of a hedge against uncertainty, and I think we've got plenty of that all around us right now. I think, the cryptos, I think, are more of a new and exciting, and so there's been a lot of money rushing into those of late. But you're seeing a tremendous amount of volatility there, which is not unexpected for something that's kind of new and interesting, and people are still kind of getting their heads around it. But I think, if you look at, I think we're probably seeing a move towards more inflationary environments. Mm-hmm. And again, gold's always been a solid hedge against that. But yeah, I think just, it's really, as I said, a hedge against uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of uncertainty, what are your views on some of the things going on around the world, particularly with North Korea? I mean, I know that some people have noticed a correlation between a spike in investments from South Koreans into things like Bitcoin and gold anytime Donald Trump makes a statement like fire and fury or calm before the storm. What do you think about the posturing going on between those two?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously, as somebody with a family and with kids, I hope that it stays at the level of posturing and doesn't get beyond that. But obviously, it's worrying at the same time. It's been, I think that was they've already had one major war in the Korean Peninsula, and I guess people always believe that there could be another one out there. Particularly when you've got, some of the leadership in Korea that's seems a little bit difficult to predict what they're going to do next.
Yeah, well, it's incredibly difficult to predict what's going to happen next, and I think, as I said, a lot of people seem to be a little bit worried about what might be coming down the road in 2018. And I mean, right now in the Middle East, we're seeing things going on in Iran. I don't know if you've been paying attention to those protests. I saw over the last 5 or 6 days, it's been continuing to escalate, and I think some of those people could actually deal with this problem by getting out of this and getting into other sectors and getting their money out of the banks. Have you been paying attention at all to what's been going on in Iran?
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, obviously, there's I think this is something that a lot of people weren't aware of before. Some of the unrest or dissatisfaction in Iran, a lot of it seems to be as much economic as it is political. Mm-hmm. And when that's the case, I think, again, people like to see their assets in something they can hang on to, something that they can physically touch, and I think that's good for gold. Yeah.
Well, when it comes to other areas where this is good for, and, some people are comparing gold right now to how it stands up as a store of value to something like Bitcoin, which obviously is relatively new compared to gold. But Bitcoin seems pretty severely flawed at the moment. I mean, there's heavy transaction fees, long transaction times. What do you think the odds are that Bitcoin could ever become any kind of a competitor with something like gold?
Well, Well, I think, as you say, Bitcoin is going through, I think, a teething phase. I think the underlying blockchain technology is probably almost more interesting in a way than just Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin's really just one aspect of that. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I think we're in the very early stages of it, and that makes it very difficult to predict where it's going to go, because there's just so many avenues wide open, and even things that we haven't even thought of yet. But yeah, I mean, the one thing that's different, I guess, between Bitcoin and gold, or between cryptocurrencies and gold, is that you can always invent a new cryptocurrency, but it's a lot harder to invent a new gold mine. It takes a lot of hard work and a lot of time to get those up and into production.
Yeah, well, you're somebody who knows that all too well. I mean, what can you tell us? You've obviously put a lot of effort into the gold space. So what can you tell us about Fiore Gold? I mean, what are your intentions, ambitions, and projections for 2018 in that regard?
Yeah, so I mean, Fiore Gold's a relatively new company. We created it by merging with a private U.S. company in the late summer and early fall of last year. And what we brought into that stable was a suite of assets, including a producing mine in Nevada, probably one of the best jurisdictions globally right now. And our goal right now is really threefold. We want to increase production at Pan. Currently, we're predicting something like 35 to 40,000 ounces in fiscal year 2018. For Pan, we'd like to grow that up to about 50,000 ounces. Pan's never going to be a huge mine. It's always going to be, about a 50,000 ounce producer. But it's a nice little mine, and it makes a good profit. We want to use that as really a stepping stone. We're going to look back and say that was our first mine. We've got another property next door where we can get a lot of organic growth called Gold Rock. That's a past producing mine that we'll be drilling on later this year. And that one actually has an interesting situation in that the federal permitting for a full mine construction at our Gold Rock project is going to be completed in Q1 of 2018. And that's going to put us in a rather unusual and enviable position of having the federal permitting completed for a mine that we don't even have a PEA yet for. So that's going to be our kind of organic growth story. And then really, I think our main focus is going to be on consolidation in 2018. We're looking at, there's a lot of projects out there that are very similar to Pan. They're smallish to medium-sized mines in Nevada and some of the surrounding states that don't really make sense as standalone companies. But once you start to bore 3 or 4 of those mines together and get up over that 100,000 ounce hurdle, and that's kind of a real magic milestone, because you see a real revaluation in mining company shares once you get beyond that 100,000 ounce a year producing threshold. And our goal is within the next 5 years is to be a 150,000 ounce producer centered on the U.S. and in particular in Nevada. And I think with a sort of 3 to 4 fold increase in gold production, we're looking at something like an 8 to 12 fold increase in a per share rating, in terms of market cap growth. So that's really our goal over the next little while.
Wow. Well, in terms of 150,000 ounces per year, how would you say Fiore is comparing with your peers in this space right now?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the other 150,000 ounce producers, you look at Rox Gold, you look at Guyana Gold, you look at McEwen Mining. I mean, all of those companies have market caps in the range of sort of 400 million to, McEwen's been up over $1 billion at times. And I think really that's the space we want to get into, as I say, get over that magic 100,000 ounce a year mark. And I think it's very doable. We have a very clear plan. We've identified the targets for acquisition. We've begun talks with some of those companies. And I think we've also built a very, very good team that took a mine. Let's not forget that, 2 years ago in 2015, Pan as a mine was part of a bankrupt company, Midway Gold, that tried to put Pan into production, ran into some startup headaches, and very, very quickly went bankrupt. And a lot of people looked at that asset and said, you know what, that asset it just doesn't work. It put Midway into bankruptcy. But, Ken Brunk, who's our chief operating officer, he put together a team and he saw the value in that mine and realized that it wasn't the mine, it was the way it was run, it was the way it was put into production, it was the corporate structure. And they really turned that around to the point where they took an asset that put a company into bankruptcy, and it's now producing, and it's producing well, and it's producing profitably. Now,
I was talking to my friend Lior just the other day, and he mentioned that the space in Nevada, which you mentioned earlier, is a $200 million property, which managed to get secured for around $5 million. That's a discount of around 97%. 8.5%. So I'm really curious how you managed to pull that one off.
Yeah, that's right. As I said, when Midway Gold went into bankruptcy in 2015, a lot of people looked at that asset and said, you know what, that asset doesn't work. There's something wrong with it. But the guys that, Ken Brunk, as I say, our COO, put together this private company, and he recognized that it was a good asset that had just been badly managed and badly run. Mm-hmm. And they were able to buy it out of bankruptcy for $5 million when, as you say, there probably had been $200 million spent over the years on exploration and development and putting it into production and constructing that mine. So what we ended up with was a brand new mine, brand new facility that really just needed some rehabilitation done to it. It's not like we picked up an asset that had been sitting there in mothballs for 10 years. I mean, it was, the plant was still running.
Well, that's amazing, and especially considering your timing with what's going on with gold right now. And on that note, what is going on with gold right now? I mean, I think it's had a pretty large spike, more so than it's seen in about 11 years. I think it's gone up around $60 in the last 30 days or so. What's going on here?
Well, as I say, I think people are looking to gold as a store of value, as a hedge against uncertainty. And I think one of the things that's starting to come out here is that, fundamentally, gold isn't something that you can just turn the tap on when the price goes up. It's not like you're making iPhones. You just crank out a few tens of thousands of more iPhones by speeding up the factory or adding another shift. Gold mines are slow things to find, to permit, to develop. And these days, it's not just a matter of getting the environmental permits for it. You've got to get the social license from the surrounding communities and get the regulators on side. And it's I think that lack of ability to respond to increased demand is what's driving the price up right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, for people who are paying attention to this and they're seeing what you're saying and they're seeing the fear and the hype and then the market's going on. What sort of words of advice might you have for people if they're thinking, yeah, you know what, these guys are onto something, I need to get my money into more of a safer havens? Where are some of the best places for them to go?
Well, in terms of the gold space, it's always, physical gold is always a good thing to have in your portfolio. Mm-hmm. Obviously, like anything, you don't want to have all your assets, all your eggs in one basket, but I think a good mix of producers, of explorers, of physical gold. Is a great place to be, and it's certainly where my portfolio is built around.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, sorry, carry on.
Sorry, well, I was just going to say, I think you're obviously positioned very well, especially right now, and I think it's an incredible time to be in the position that you are. So I personally think people should be getting involved with you guys. I'd like you to give out your links so that people who are watching this can say, yeah, you know what, these guys are onto something. I want to get in on that.
Yeah, I think Fiore Gold as a company, I think is really going to be a real growth story. That's really where we're positioning this. And if you want to see more about the story, it's fioregold.com. But I think that the team behind it, the operating team, the capital markets team, and the success we've had over the years in creating value for shareholders and building companies, I think that's going to serve us well over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and moving forward, just in your final thoughts, I mean, 2018 seems to be shaping up to be quite the year. There's, I guess you could call it a cryptocurrency the phenomenon happening right now. And I think people are also going to be flooding into things like gold, silver, as soon as they realize just how undervalued it really is. So what are some of the things you foresee in the next few months, leading into mid-2018?
Yeah, I think I think we're really just in the start of a rising gold market. I think gold for a long time has really struggled to break through that $1,300 mark. It's popped above a few times, but it's really never been able to extend that run for more than a day or two. And I think just since the new year, we've really seen it finally break through and stick in that plus $1,300 range. And I think we're going to see a sort of steady increase. I don't know if we'll get to some of the more outlandish predictions of $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 gold, but I certainly think we're going to see it well above 1,300 and into 1,400 over the coming months. And that's great for a company like Fiore, which is producing gold and which is selling gold.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I obviously hope to see it rise. I think it's heavily undervalued, and I obviously own some as a hedge against the coming dollar crash, which I feel is an inevitability. And I think you know, a lot of people are starting to see that as well, and they're looking for these places to put their assets in. And I think Fiore Gold is one of those wise, safe places. So once again, man, thank you so much for breaking this down for us. Do you have a Twitter or any kind of links where people can follow you directly?
Yeah, you know, as I say, I'm a bit of an old dog, so I'm just getting my head around all the Twitter and Instagram and all the rest. We have an Instagram feed with Fiore. Okay. We have a Twitter account. We'll try to post more on that over 2018, as now that we've got the mine producing and producing well.
Perfect. Well, I'll be sure to include all the links in the description so people can start helping to share all of your social media sites, and we can let people know, you know, exactly what you guys are doing. So once again, thank you for talking to us, and keep up the amazing work.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.